Great. So on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, I would like to welcome you to a very exclusive discussion today. Brave is the new beautiful, a kind heart, fierce mind, and a brave spirit is all you need. So our speakers and the moderator for this evening do not need an introduction. They are well known to all of you, and you have met them once or twice or more than that. They are very well recognized and reputed business leaders who are fellow members of CA Sri Lanka. So before we start, please note that we have allocated a time towards the end for the questions for the audience. So therefore, you can type your questions on the Q&A section and the chat section for the convenience of the moderator. So a kind request for the speakers, please have your videos on at all times. We would like to see all of you throughout the session. Our moderator this evening is Ms. Dulani Fernando, the Chief Executive Officer at CA Sri Lanka. Without further delay, I would like to invite Dulani to take over. Dulani, over to you.
Thank you, Niroshi. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka is an equal opportunity employer. I'm proud to say that more than 49% of our staff strength is represented by females, specializing in their given areas. We at CA encourage women to take their rightful place in society, whether as a member, aspiring member, or as part of our CA team. CA Sri Lanka to date has a membership of chartered accountants where 33% is represented by our female members. Interestingly, we see this number increasing to 60% when it comes to our aspiring members. When we look at today's work environment, we hear of equal opportunity, women representation in the boardroom as well as workplace, equal pay, gender equality, where it is of paramount importance that the females are given a similar playing field, just like our male counterparts. Then we also hear about these trailblazing women who have shattered the glass ceiling, overcome obstacles, become mentors, managed it all. Today, I'm proud to share this platform with 6 such women. I'm also proud to acknowledge the fact that they are part of our CA membership. So let me start off with you, Coralie, without wasting any more time. Coralie, you have served in many reputed banks and plantation companies in Sri Lanka. You are currently chairperson of Bogala Graphite Lanka PLC and an independent director and chairperson of the audit committees of Ceylon Bank PLC, People's Leasing and Finance PLC, RIL Properties PLC, United Motors Lanka PLC, and Hemas Pharmaceuticals PLC, Private Limited. You are also a member of the Council of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and has served on several committees. So my question to you today, Coralie, as I mentioned, CA Sri Lanka student population is represented 60% by female students, whereas when it comes to those who complete the qualification, the numbers reduced by 50%. At our mid-level CBA level, the female representation is 41%, and at the final SPA level, it's 33%. This is the trend we see in the workplace as well. Entry-level roles are well represented by women, whereas the higher up we move, we see less female representation. What is the story the numbers are telling us? Do we give up, or is it that we don't have the opportunity to reach the top? What is your take on this, Coralie? Coralie, you're on mute.
Sorry. Dulani, thank you. I wouldn't actually use the word give up. I don't think that people actually just, give up just like that. Your question dealt with 2 distinct segments. One was the student segment who seemed to be dropping out between registration and qualification. And secondly, women who are dropping out between, or not getting promoted, between being recruited and becoming managers, senior managers, and hopefully directors. Now, while some of the issues are the same, I think they are also in some ways slightly different. If we just look briefly at the student issue, while they would still face the same biases, whether conscious or unconscious, and the stereotypes that affect us later on as well, the reason students are probably not reaching qualification is possibly more for cultural reasons. It is possible that at home, more emphasis is given to a son's education than a daughter's. It could also be the fact that some of them have taken on more responsibilities. At the end of the day, women are still, even globally, the primary caregivers, whether it comes to children, running a house, or the elderly. So it could be that that caregiving role actually has a negative impact on their education and their career. They may also be making choices, not necessarily, I wouldn't actually use the word choices, because some of these are not real choices, where they choose, to take on roles at home as opposed to focusing on their education. So I think that is dealing with the students. But I think what CA could do to actually look at this in greater depth is to have a look at whether these students are actually getting training contracts, whether there is actually a gender bias in training contracts and in employment. I think that would actually give us a better understanding of why people are dropping out during the stages of the exam. Now, when it comes to moving up the ladder, I believe that the issues actually start off at the very beginning of your career. That is where you face the most challenges. I think many women actually enter the workforce, but they don't get the promotions they deserve. Now, this is, I think, for many reasons. One is, again, I said, because of bias. For example, women who display leadership qualities can, are often called bossy or aggressive, whereas a man displaying the same qualities will be told they have leadership qualities. Then I think with training, we need to make sure that women actually get the same training that enables them to get promotions as men. And also important is succession planning. I don't think we actually look at whether succession planning has a gender bias or not when we look at organizations. And I think that is a role that all of us can play to make sure that succession planning does take into account or is fair by women. I think on our part as well, we often lack confidence. We don't really ask for promotions. We just assume that if we do work hard enough, we'll get a promotion. We don't ask for what we want. And we also tend to be more diffident. I mean, I can even say that about myself. Looking back on my career, there are times when I've actually sought approval or sought authorization, whereas I needn't have done it. I think there again, we as women tend to lose out because of that diffidence. We don't act confidently, and we tend to think that we are less capable than we actually are. I think those are factors that actually hold women back. And I would also add lack of support in the workplace, both in terms of career guidance. And there again, I think mentoring plays a great role. And I think that is something that senior women have to very consciously do for the more junior women in the workplace. Women also face a lot of issues with infrastructure and sometimes with issues like security. For example, if an office is in a way out place, right, they may have issues with transport, which also makes them fall out of the workplace unless the workplace is willing to make some arrangements, which I'm afraid quite often they aren't. So I think that is really why people actually fall out at the managerial levels, where they actually don't get the promotions that they should be getting, that they want to get, and that they deserve.
Okay, thank you. That sets a good tone for me to move on to Nilanthi. Nilanthi, you are the Chief Financial Officer at Spence PLC, a member of the Supervisory Board of the group, and is the Joint Managing Director of Connect Campus Private Limited, and a Director of several subsidiary and joint venture companies in the group. You are also the Managing Director of Spence Corporate Finance Private Limited. And Nilanthi, recently you were a Director of Women and Media Collective, a non-governmental organization involved in empowerment of women. My question to you today, Nilanthi, is if you take today being Women's International Day, theme for this year is break the bias. Do you think that there is bias? Coralie mentioned that there is bias. If there is bias, is this unconscious bias or conscious bias? How do we women, as women, how do we tackle this without letting it hinder our success?
Thank you, Dulani. Thank you for inviting me for this interesting forum. And just to tell you that your voice was breaking up a little bit. I don't know whether it's just for me or for the others as well. But anyway, I sort of got the gist of the question you asked me. So it's a good question. Is there a bias? Is it conscious or is it unconscious? Just to tell you what the general feeling in the world is, the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report for 2021 was published recently. And in that, the findings say that we are still a long way to go from achieving true gender equality. So according to their findings, it will take us about 135 years at this rate to reach true gender equality. What they do is they measure on economic opportunity and employment, economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. So there are 4 different factors. Now, I will just talk about the economic opportunity and the employment and that factor because of the forum we are in today. So obviously there's a long way to go. And Sri Lanka is number 116 out of 157 countries. So you can see how low we are in the pecking order. And we've dropped from the previous year. And every year I think there's been a drop. So this is a concern. And why is that? So yes, I think Coralie enumerated a lot of problems, that the cultural problems that have arisen because of the patriarchal society and all that we live in. And I think that is part of the conscious bias. So obviously that conscious bias is there. Because for example, I find even in our group, which is into 16 different industry sectors, there are certain sectors where we have the percentage of women employees to be much lower than others. Across the group, we have 40% women representation in employment. So across sectors, it changes quite drastically. For example, the hotel sector, it's only about 13% women employed in the hotel sector. Why is that? Because there is a certain social sort of, I wouldn't call it a stigma as such, but there is some cultural problems in women being employed in hotels, particularly because they are resorts out of Colombo and they need to be resident there. So even when they go in, though we've had several educational programs encouraging parents to send their children in, this is still, there is a serious gap there. Then if you take the port sector, there again, there is a severe shortage of women in the port, logistics, maritime sector and freight sector, even in our group and even in the industry. So just yesterday, I was told that in the port of Colombo, women can't enter the port after 6 p.m. Now, this is a peculiar rule that has been set probably many, many years ago. So there is bias. And I would say that that is the conscious bias, where they particularly say women cannot work after a particular time, and so many other sort of labor-related issues that come in to cause this bias. Then there is, of course, the unconscious bias, which could be prevalent within an organization. So I think most corporates like ours, we are an equal opportunity employment. We offer the same facilities, the same opportunities to men and women, because our objective is obviously for the betterment of the organization. So whether it's a woman or a man who can do that job, we would like to have them. And even when it comes to recruitments, when it comes to promotions, the opportunities are there for both. But there could be, in certain instances, in a sector, as I said now, these sectors which I mentioned, just the same way that from their families, they would have problems in sending their children to work in the hotel sector, even in the hotel sector. There could be some sort of unconscious bias, which we don't expect. I mean, that on paper, it's not there, but if the immediate boss or the person who is doing the interviewing has some sort of thinking, okay, she's not going to last, she's very good, she's not going to last. So those things can happen. Like even in our plantation sector, we have a lot of women who are the tea pluckers and the workers, but you don't have a single manager, a estate manager as a woman. They're all men. But there are certain cultural reasons why you don't have it. While in finance, HR, legal, all the corporate sector, which is the corporate services, we have a lot of women, and they're all, also going up being promoted and taking on senior responsibilities. So this is the problem. And as Coralie also mentioned, though we have 40% women in the group, as we go up, it gets less and less. The percentage gets less. So it's not only within the organization, but it's also from outside, from their own families, that this bias could arise. So a person has an opportunity to get to a senior management position, they'd rather not, because they prefer to concentrate more on the family and the children and the children's education. So those are the sort of unconscious biases that I could think of when I deal with, when I talk about the corporate sector.
Thank you, Nilanthi. I will definitely come back to you on some of the comments that you made.
Okay.
Moving on to Sme. Sme, you count for over 30 years of experience and serve as the group director of the Capital Maharaja organization. You were appointed to the main board at the young age of 32. You have served on many boards in both the public and private sector, and has served as an independent director in the National Lotteries Board. Sme, you're a leader, a mentor, a mother, a daughter, and a successful woman. How did you balance work and life to become this successful woman you are today? What are the hard choices that you had to make to become who you are? Sme, on mute.
Thank you for having me, Dulani. I'm privileged to be here. Yes. When it comes to this topic, personally, I feel that every woman has to ask of themselves whether they want to be a career person or whether they want to be a homemaker. That's an individual choice. The person has to be happy with that choice, because once you feel that you want to pursue a career, then you have to be brave, right? You need to forge ahead and you need to go through whatever that comes your way, because life is strewn with challenges, right? So as women, we are very capable of that. We are more resilient than males, right? So once, if that answer is yes, I want to be a career professional, or I want to join the workforce as a female, then when it comes to work-life balance, okay, there are certain cornerstones, milestones in your life, like when you're about to get married, for instance. Then you have to make sure that you have a partner who understands and supports you to go this journey. That solves a lot of your problems. And if the partner does not understand, then you have to have that communication. Right now, that is a problem sometimes, particularly if you take factory workers. I don't think the woman is more seen than heard. So those are cultural issues which both Nilanthi and Coral were talking about in general. So still for all, the woman is seen as having to stay at home. But when you take the professionals, when you take us chartered accountants, we do have a choice, right? So we can communicate with our partners or partners to be and make them understand that this is what makes us happy and that we need to go down that road. That's milestone number one. So there is a balance there. You need to assert yourself. Then that goes to your in-laws and your parents. Then comes another milestone of having kids. Some professionals may decide not to have kids, then it's that much easier. But if most people do decide to have kids, then with those milestones, you have issues. You have lack of support in households, right? I'm talking to the ladies who probably are watching this. Yes, all of us face the same problems. We had lack of care for the kids. Everybody doesn't have a mother-in-law and a mother. And to be honest, I'm not sure I am going to take that role for my daughter if she were to have a kid, right? So that's very real. Then you need to address that. I had that problem when I had my first kid. When I was about to return to work after 4 months, I realized the support I had was not adequate. Then I had to source a lady who was very reliable. And I had to get her on, and I had to develop this little package for her where I said, if you stay with me for 2 months, I'll take you abroad. I will do this for you and I will do that for you. And that was a little unique solution which fitted her because she was not a typical domestic and she was a wonderful resource to have, particularly because I had to get into some strong deadlines as I went back to work. There were certain projects happening and I had to get into some deadlines. So I was preparing myself for that. But I was not a complete hands-off mother. I was very hands-on, and I devised methods of trying to come home for lunch and, taking my daughter to work in the car and little things like that, which doesn't give 24/7 comfort to the daughter, but I gave a lot of comfort. Then another thing I did was after work, when I come home, I make sure that there's a lot of communication with the children. Right, so I spent time, and whenever they needed me, I was there. And another thing that I did was I made a personal choice of not fitting from company to company. I would complete 30 years at Maharajas in 2023. Yeah. So when I got if a headhunter called me or if I got this job offer, which was considered better, I didn't move on because Maharajas was my family, right? So when I was about 39, my son got cancer. He got leukemia, right? At that point, that was a challenge I had to face. I can't say, look, I'm a career professional and I can't not look after my kid. So I was in the cancer hospital for a short time. Then both me and my husband went to Australia. My husband was there with me for 6 months and I had to stay on for more than a year. So there was no working from home at that time. So there was another group director who stepped into my shoes. I'm very thankful for all what the company did for me at that time. But I was essentially a part of Maharajas and Maharajas was a part of me. So it was like they were supporting me to save my son, right? So those are the choices. You need to give the company as much as you get from the company. And you need to be able to make those choices. Each person has their own challenges and they will have to. I still encourage, I mean, it's much easier now that the opportunities of working from home are there for ladies, right? So I'm actually stopping there in the best interest of time. But I think there are a lot of opportunities now than during our younger days. And I urge the people to take on, becoming an entrepreneur at home. You can work 8 to 5 from home. There are lots of opportunities. And I really encourage people who are on the verge of giving up a job to think of the other alternatives and hang in there.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashni. That's actually good advice. I think we need to ask for the help we need. We need to reach out to whoever our support function, support system is, and then we need to ask for that help. Yeah. Maya, I'm going to move on to you. Maya, you're a non-executive director and the company secretary of Renuka City Holdings PLC, Cargo Boat Development Company PLC, and Renuka Hotels PLC. You have over 40 years of experience in accounting and finance, having served in reputed local and foreign companies. Maya, Nilanthi touched on the fact that the hotel industry is not represented too much by women, that we don't see too many women in the hotel industry. You have been in this industry for a long time. Do you see women managing work stress, long hours well in this industry? And do you see many females reaching the top, or is it very common in this industry to give up midway?
Actually, Dulani, thank you for inviting me to be on this webinar. Well, I tend to differ a bit with Nilanthi because maybe at the lower end, there is a good representation of women. If you in a hospitality industry, like if you look at the different departments, you walk into a hotel, you will always come across a woman in almost every department, whether it be the reservations, the front office, the housekeeping, banquets, it's all manned by women, but maybe up to middle management level. You don't see many of them going beyond that. Mainly because at the lower end, it's more like, say, if you take a woman, she has her work drawn onto her. She knows she's going to work on a shift. Her time of coming and going is there. And also, there is no responsibility at that level. So it's very easy for a woman to handle a job at that level. But I have noticed, okay, going beyond the management level, that's where the middle management level, that's where you get the responsibilities coming in, long working hours. And that's the point at which they would like to drop off. Very few would want to continue beyond a middle management level, especially in the hotel industries. There's a lot of stress when you look at it, because for almost on a daily basis, you will find certain issues coming up. You got to resolve them. You cannot just stop everything and walk off. Also, the hours of work is not defined. One day you might have to work even 12 hours, next day even less or more. It all depends on how the day's work is. So you find that when it comes to a woman in a hotel industry, going beyond the middle management to a top management level is very few. Whereas at the lower level, you get quite a big representation. Even in the finance sector, which I am looking after, you find quite a few females coming as accounts clerks, accounts executives, even up to accountant level. But beyond that, I notice they don't want to take the responsibility because, okay, if some problem arises, she will have to wait, solve it, and then go home. There is more demand than at the home The children will be waiting, the husband will be waiting. So it's sort of a balance which they will find difficult to maintain. Also, society is such that they think the female role is more at home than at the workplace. So therefore, they will find it a bit difficult to keep the work balance and the personal balance going and keep peace at home, basically. As Nilanthi said, maybe there is a stigma as well. I have come across a certain, when you recruit somebody, you want him to come for the second interview, and then she says, no, my father or my mother said, I would prefer if you don't work for a hotel. Because they think that, okay, foreigners are coming, that there are people around, and it's not safe for a girl to work. That is also there. But on the majority, now where I work, we have quite a lot of females. But at that middle management level, they don't want to go beyond that because of the commitment that they have to make to proceed. So I don't know, maybe if somebody is really determined and loves her job, she can overcome it, like how I had to overcome all the problems of looking after the child without any help. But somehow we battled on and said, no, we want to continue with our work and go up the ladder. So it is the mindset of the people or the women that needs to be changed and give them the challenge, or let them take the challenge and move forward rather than dropping off midway.
Thank you, Maya. That is an interesting take. So we keep coming back to this, the same thing as in we females represent very well at the entry level. But the more we go up, we see less females taking that challenge for various reasons. Like you said, it could be home commitments, it could be lack of confidence, it could be so many things, but we see less females taking positions at the top. So thank you, Maya. I will come back to you. Maurice, moving on to you, Maurice. You're the Chairman, Managing Director of Astron Limited since 1983, having worked in the company for 13 years prior to that. In 1993, you carried out the first leverage management buyout of a company in Sri Lanka. You have been the chairman of the Sri Lanka Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association and the chairman of the Pharmaceutical Advisory Committee of the Ministry of Industries. Maurice, women tend to downplay their own worth unintentionally. As a female entrepreneur, how do you convey your own value as a leader, and what is your advice to aspiring female leaders, especially those who want to become entrepreneurs?
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me on your forum. Yes, so what I would say what I believe that we are all responsible for what happens in our lives. It is up to us to make things happen, not depend on others to make things happen for us. I think that if we aspire to be leaders, we should take the initiative and work to ensure that we get there. There are no limits to what we can achieve or aspire to. You need to make people feel and accept your presence and ensure that you meet them on equal terms. Take risks, although those should be calculated and well thought of, and not be afraid to speak up and take chances. Don't expect differentiation because you are a woman. You have to ensure that you're good at your job and perform as well as any other person would to become a leader. Grab opportunities and show others what you can do. Don't expect any special treatment or favors from people. You have to rise above any bias that may come your way from both men and women, from inside as well as outside the company. Expect it, that you will be shown some bias. Do what is right, be flexible, and do what has to be done. Enjoy your work and go ahead. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Marie. Anuji, I'm going to move on to you, Anuji. You're a partner of Ernst & Young Sri Lanka since 2003 and served as the lead audit engagement partner for several large, diversified local and international groups and companies. You hold several leadership roles at EY Sri Lanka, such as learning leader of EY Sri Lanka and Maldives and a member of the EY Sri Lanka Technical Committee. You are also the program leader for the EY Entrepreneurial Winning Women Asia Pacific program and is responsible for guiding and mentoring the winners from Sri Lanka. Anuji, you're the chairperson of the Women's Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the capacity building leader of WCIC and a council member of CA Sri Lanka, and past chairperson of the Women Empowerment and Leadership Development Committee of CA Sri Lanka. So my question to you is something very close to your heart, I believe. You wear many hats. You are a partner of EY, council member, you serve in many committees, chairperson of the Women's Chamber. I see you going far beyond 8 to 5 job role and you keep pushing yourself to do it all. How do you balance everything? What is your advice to those of us who aspire to have such an illustrious career?
So thank you, Dulani, and thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure listening to all these amazing women. I've already taken note of few things for my personal development. So I think I have what I call my 7 steps, which I use for me to do what I do. So firstly, I think I actually assess the stage in my life, because I think you have to be very realistic about the stage in your life. But like what Ashini said, what I could do when I was a young mother is different to what I can do now, because now my son is 23 years old and it's only by choice that I see him, his choice. Whereas when he was 4 or 5, I had no choice. He was always there. So I'm very realistic about the stage in my life, because that is what defines how much I can take on. So at that time, I think the early stages of my life, I probably spent a lot of time between work and home. I didn't take on too many things, but now I do, because the home needs me way less, and office work, I can manage it much better with age. Plus also, I used to also have my son very aware of what I do, because that also brings in appreciation and helps them also to give you time to do the work. Like you said, I used to do John Keys, and that meant at the last stages, every Saturday, Sunday, we were at John Keys reviewing files, because it was very physical. And I would always take my son to JKH with a book and a pen and all that. And he would sit with me Saturdays, Sundays. So he could see what I do. And that also helped him to appreciate that the mother is not suddenly disappearing from his life, but it's actual work. So like that, I think you have to also, as women, we can't ignore life. We can't forget life and work. It's always very mixed together. So you need to how to balance that. So that's the first thing I do. I assess to see how much time I can give. And then second is always focusing on your personal excellence, how I can improve. I am my biggest critic. Every time I do something, I find a lot of faults in what I did wrong and things I can improve, because I always believe that your job skills will never exceed your personal skills, because the better you are as a personal, the better you focus on improving yourself, it automatically drives down to you, helping you to improve your job skills. Then the third thing I think I do a lot and I've begun to appreciate a lot more is networking. Networking as much as you do, because the more different people, like I've got a lot of networks that have nothing to do with accounting. But that network gives me so much of ideas, so much of insights. And I find that network valuable, because I have a lot of accounting networks, Plus, I have a lot of non-accounting. So as a business person, that network is very valuable. Then the other thing that I do is I always find people who are smarter than me and who have the potential to replace me to work for me. That I think is something that you people have to learn as leaders, because if you don't have someone to replace you, you can't leave a job, you can't get a promotion. And the more smarter and better people you have who can actually step into your role, it makes life easier for you. And the next step is you must refuse to accept mediocrity from them, because it's very, very easy for people to be mediocritic. And if they realize you accept mediocrity, they keep going down and down and down. So you have to also focus on demanding their best, because they are capable of doing it. And then I think, and the other thing, like what I think, I can't remember who said this, probably Ashini or Maurice, making use of opportunities. Because as women, what we have to understand is, for us, it's never a good time to take on opportunity. If you ever get an opportunity, you can think of 10 reasons why you can't take it on. Either your family demands or something. So you have to remember, it's never a good time when opportunity comes, but you have to be brave enough to take on the opportunity, because you can do it. And once you take it on, I think women have this, I don't think we take enough use of our talent to multitask and adapt, because women are very adaptable. I think when we have families, we learn how to, because when we get up, I mean, we are meeting so many requests from so many people. So we don't use that skill to our careers. So when we take use of opportunities, we will find a way to do it. So you have to be brave to take opportunities. And finally, you have to be very selfish about your time. Every one of us needs that personal time. So every day I mean, very rarely I don't do this. Majority of the days, I will at least find an hour to watch something TV. Something that relaxes me. Then weekends, I probably try to do at least cooking or some craft projects, or will put a half a day shopping time for me where I go shopping. So it's just my time, just my de-stress time, which you need, because that's what refreshes you. Otherwise, you get exhausted with all the pressures. So those are my tips. I'm sure the ladies can share some more. But that's kind of my survival kit, how I managed to do all this.
Okay, thank you, Anuji. Currently, Anuji mentioned about networking. So I'm just going to ask you this. In professional women, we frequently experience limited access to established networks in which professional men often participate. So we don't seem to have a boys' club. So my question to you is, as an established female business leader, do you think that it's something that we lack? We don't have that support function within our women's circle, and as a result, is that holding us back?
Yes, I would say yes to both. It is something we lack for many reasons. To begin with, I think it is something we lack because many of the friends we make in school may have opted not to go into careers. As Ashini mentioned, that's a personal choice, and I think that's a choice that we need to support. But as time goes on, there are more and more women opting for careers. So I think that situation should ease as more women come into the workplace. But at the moment, we need to be aware of this. And it is something that we need to make younger career women aware of as well, because I think earlier in your career, you don't realize the importance of networking. So they need to realize that networking is not a waste of time. It is not something superficial, and it's something they need to do, and it's something we need to do consciously. Like, Anuji mentioned, she's joined various organizations that are not accountancy related. That is something that we need to encourage. Of course, there again, women are being held back by responsibilities at the home because they find it, they could do an 9 to 5 job, but they find it hard to put in the hours after work that networking actually requires.
True. Anuji, I'm just going to move on to you on that question because this is stemming from what you mentioned. Do you see that, you said that you do network, but do you see us not having our own boys club version of that we don't represent ourselves well in that arena? Do you think that's a hindrance? What is your take on that?
So I think CA is a fabulous network opportunity, because if you see, CA on its own has a lot of committees. It has a lot of committees, and being on those committees alone, I've made such fabulous networks which I would never have done without being on those committees. So that's why I would encourage the audience to actively engage, because yes, so many committees, and you can easily get into those committees, and those committees are a natural network that you have. Then for women, we also have the CA Women Empowerment and Leadership Development Committee, which is also, we are trying to get the women to come into the committee, and where women can network and form a CA female network on its own. Plus also, I think you can join other networks, like what I said, if you are in the director category, SLID is a very good network because that will give you both a male and a female network. So like that, I think like what Carly said, it has to be a conscious decision. It depends on what you want. If you are going to be an entrepreneur or even a businesswoman, even the women's chamber, right? Even the women's chamber has both professional women and entrepreneurial. So you have to, I think what Carly said, we don't have too much of time to waste. We can't think every evening we are going to be networking at some event. That's not going to happen. So you have to pick what you really need and then be actively involved. So just being a passenger in some club, it's not going to get you anywhere. If you're going to, for me, if I'm going to waste time getting into something, I will be actively involved, because that's what will build you the effective network.
Thank you, Anuji. Nilanthi, with the impact of the pandemic, we see a change in the work environment. Companies have embraced working from home or remotely. Has this created more opportunities for women? And have we actually embraced these opportunities?
Dulani, I'd just like to just go back to my first question. I
Sure.
think I only answered half of it and not the balance half.
Okay.
I didn't realize, because you asked me what can we do about this unconscious bias or whatever. So I think the speakers before me answered many of those questions, in the sense what we can do as women because of this unconscious bias, saying we can't join certain sectors, or they feel that we may not be able to entertain clients, for example, travel abroad at short notice. You know, those are some of the biases that I would say that arise in the workplace. So we have to make that conscious effort if we really want to get there and participate and improve, progress in our careers. We have to put that aside and be able to prove that we can do that as good as any man. You know, if we need to travel abroad at short notice, we should be able to do it. I mean, by choice, you might not want to do it because you have children and you have problems that you need to sort out at home. So if that is the case, that's different. But if you can, you need to bring that. And even, you know, meeting up at a club after work. Now, that is something that I would encourage people to do, even women. If you can find the time when people want to go.
Nilanthi, there is a connection issue from your end.
Of breaking those biases. Because the moment you are involved in a committee, and I have been doing that throughout my career, joining, whether it's SEMA, whether it's CA, whether it's SLID, so many other forums, and being able to network and build relationships, so that sort of helps you in your career and also in your work and also your organization. So that's something I just wanted to mention, Bulani. But in terms of your next question, as about the pandemic and what we have done and whether this has helped women, from working from home, I can tell you, yes, from my experience in our organization, the moment the pandemic happened and we were in lockdown or curfew or whatever it is, we started working from home. And fortunately, we had the technology to do that. So people were able to work from home, and there were certain people who still had to come to work after getting curfew passes because people working in the port and so many other areas. But those who could work from home, and we took a conscious decision even after that to continue with this. So we have what we call the semi-virtual mobility, which is a policy that we adopted in the group. We will continue with it even, when there is no problem about the pandemic. So that is something that we are continuing with. We have set targets and saying so many people will be working from home. And from the feedback that we have received and the surveys that we have carried out, we found that it has helped, particularly the female employees who have really embraced it. And from their feedback, we see that they really like it. So that going forward, what we will be doing is having people come into work maybe twice a week on a roster. That is just, again, to network and to engage, for engagement. Because sometimes when you work totally remotely, that employee engagement also could sort of disintegrate a little bit. So we will be having that policy. We found that it also saved us a lot of costs in terms of utilities and travel, so many other costs, and also space. We have given up a lot of space in the organization because of this work from home, the semi-virtual mobility policy where people will be sharing this. So all staff who can work from home, we have identified that they could work from home. And it has certainly given more opportunities for women, where they there is more flexible working hours as a result. So they can after that they can work late in the night, and they save on their commute time as well. Otherwise, at least 2 hours of the day goes on commute, depending on where they live. So they save a lot of time on that, and I think this helps a lot of women to have a better work-life balance.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Nilanthi. I mean, I agree. I think it has definitely made life well easier for women, but I also think it adds that little bit of complication because we don't have that timeline. Then we end up doing the housework, office work, children's work, everything, and then we don't sometimes realize that we are working till late night because that timeline is not there.
I agree, Dulani, because I remember at the time when we had curfew and we were in total lockdown, when I worked, I found my day never ended. So I mean, it's not that we tell them you have to work from home. There are at least 2 days of the week they're expected to come to office to break that sort of. So that's how we have been managing so far. But by and large, I would say most of the workers, the employees have appreciated it and feel that it has been given them some sort of a new perspective.
Right. Thank you. Maurice, if I ask you the same question coming from entrepreneurial background in your industry, do you think work from home has actually helped the female population in your industry?
Really now for us, we are manufacturing and marketing company. So when it comes to manufacturing, where we have quite a lot of females, more than 50% are females, they have to come to work. Even during the pandemic, we got the passers and people had to come to work. But when it comes to marketing, of course, they're on the field, and because we market mainly pharmaceuticals, they had to go to the medical profession and to hospitals, which is not very good. So we encourage the marketing people to work from home. But when it comes to people come to office, especially manufacturing staff during the pandemic up to last year, what we did was we provided them with transport, so that now we continue with it, so that now nobody uses public transport to come to work. Everybody who comes to work here comes by is provided transport or use their own transport. But this year we decided that that we will not have people working. So some people work from home. We have office staff, but they make a very small number. They work about 7% of the people only work in the office staff. So they had the option of working from home, ICT and the finance and the marketing administration people. But this year we decided no, if the manufacturing staff can come to work, the office staff also can come to work because they are small numbers. But we continue to provide them with the transport and everybody comes to work. At restaurant, of course, everybody is equally treated. Men or women are not worried so much about gender, but women do get some special attention when it comes to their pregnancies and having children, having infants. So what we did was, if you were pregnant during the pandemic, you were allowed to take as much leave as you wanted. Of course, it came to some point where we said, okay, you're now on no pay leave. But we didn't ask them to come to work. That was their choice that they could make, whether they were able to come to work or not. And apart from that, now apart from the usual maternity leave that is granted to them, they also have the option, not only during the pandemic, but outside the pandemic as well, to stay away for an additional 3 to 6 months, of course, on a no pay basis. So that's one of the benefits that women get at restaurant from the men, really. Personally, I don't work from home, right? I don't really work from home, really. But when I was speaking to some of the ladies who did work from home, some of them said they liked it, really. Initially, it was a bit difficult to cope, because you're at home, you have your children, you have all your other housework to do, then people just depend on you when you're at home. But now that they have got used to it, once they got used to it at least, they like the flexibility that it afforded them. They could work as and when they wanted and finish their thing on time. Of course, here in office, we had to do a lot of follow-up work with them. And then the other thing is that they liked about working, and they found that they could sometimes do even more work than they usually do at office because they're not distracted in any way. In office, you get distracted because there is the meeting people, socializing, so many things happen that people come and disturb you all the time, but that may not happen at home. So yes, some of them liked working at home, and they thought that it was good. Unfortunately, Astron doesn't promote it anymore. But again, other people, women in general, I think, this work from a home thing is, I think, a good opportunity for them, as Nilanti said, because I think now it gives them a lot of flexibility. People who do not want to come to work, but there are quite a lot of women, they prefer staying at home and doing something and looking after the family. They have a choice, that they can do what they want, really, that something that they are interested in. If they are entrepreneurial, they can take the initiative and do things, so that they can do it on their time and what they want. And it also adds to the finances of the, so you don't have to have worked in an office before, but you can still do something now that you can do something from home and add to the finances of the family, and at the same time look after your family and contribute much more to the quality of their life, improve the quality of the life. And again, those women who may opt to work at home, again, I think Nilanthi spoke about it, the traveling issue was there. They don't have to travel up and down. They don't have to come in public transport. Everybody doesn't have their own transport. They don't have to use public transport. So I think it's given women a lot of opportunities. This work from a home concept.
Thank you, Maurice. Ashley, you mentioned regarding having support functions, asking for help. Just something that we see is the fact that a lot of women give up their careers to support our children's education. Now, this one reason is because of the fact that the school system is very demanding on the parents, and we see most of the time it's the mother who takes up this additional responsibility. So how do you think women who face this can strive to balance both?
That's a good question, Dulani, because I have seen a few ladies succumb to pressure when they are told that the child is not doing too well, the child is trailing behind in their class. What I would like to tell the younger members who are listening to this is not to succumb to that pressure, because now both my kids went to government schools, and in those schools I saw, particularly in the girls' schools, the principal pushes for a particular number of A's because that is the benchmark on which she is assessed. And I saw very clearly how the teachers were being pressurized to get so many A's in their subjects. And in turn, they throw it back at the kids. So they expect the kids to be of a particular standard. And then at parent-teachers meetings, I have seen them tell the mothers, look, this person is not going to get an A or whatever, you know. So also having said that, I've seen parents tell the teacher, I am not pushing the child towards an A. I want the child to be happy, because that is what it's all about. I mean, what are we after? We are also after being happy. Our kids are also the same. Now, mental health is a big issue. I mean, yes, Corona is there, the pandemic is there, but mental health is a huge issue. There is a big issue in workplaces, in families, domestic violence has gone up. All that is because there is no happiness factor. So whilst the child is being sent to school, the parents have to make sure that they don't try to live their dreams through the child. They have to make sure that they create a happy child, because all the ladies here will confirm that at interviews, we don't look at the number of A's. We look at the rounded individual. We look at the leadership skills. We look at the team building skills. We look at the communication skills. That's what we are after. We are not looking at straight A's at A levels, O levels. No. Yes, there has to be a qualification if it's a professional, but that person doesn't have to be pushed there. So don't give up your job to push your child, because remember, when it comes to our stage of life, Anonji talked of stages of life. Our stage of life, the children are ready to move on. In a couple of years, my children are going to move on, and that's a good thing. That's my job, right? Every bird is taught to fly by the mother bird. So it's like that. They have to move on. And if you have given up your job to push children's grades, it's so sad, because at this stage of life, you don't know what to do with yourself, because your own parents have moved on, they've left planet Earth, or they are in the process of leaving planet Earth, and your children are moving on. And we are stuck because we've given up everything to put all our dreams into a child who is going to do their own thing. That the young mothers don't see. They don't see this. And the teachers and the principals push you. Please don't get into that. Make sure you have me time. But obviously, it is very valuable. You have to have me time. You're able to do a lot, increase your productivity. I can suggest things like yoga or meditation or mindfulness or exercise, whatever that floats your boat, whatever you like. Do something for yourself. You're able to become more productive. You're able to handle stress a lot better. And you are not going to, actually, you won't drive your child to madness if you do that to yourself, right? And at the end of when your child is ready to leave on, there won't be a strained relationship. You'll have a good relationship with your child. Don't give in to that pressure. You don't need that. The child will grow to be what they are going to be. Yes, get help, get tuition, whatever that's required, but you don't take on the teacher's role. That is something that I personally believe.
Thank you, Ashni. Actually, that's a very interesting take. What you're saying is very thought-provoking. So I think that it will definitely help the audience. Maya, I'm going to move on to you, Maya. Something that, I mean, in your role, I'm sure you sit in quite a few interview boards. Do you think females face interviews, if they are of a young age, if they are at a marriageable age, do you think that if there are the interviewees, do you think they could look at the young girls and think, okay, you know, if we hire so-and-so, in a few months' time, she's going to get married, thereafter she's going to go on maternity leave, that means we are going to have about 4 months without anyone. Do you that stereotyping is happening in today's work environment? Maya, you're on mute.
I don't think that happens now, because most of the interview boards that I have been with, we do have, it's mainly young, maybe aspiring chartered accountants who come, especially as I'm in the finance field. And there is quite a lot of young girls who have been coming for the interviews. But we have not thought of their short-term commitments when we come to choose somebody. We hope that the interviewee will not leave us when they get married. And of course, definitely it doesn't bar us from taking them on board. So I don't think that is a problem at the moment, because definitely we, of course, that is there always at the back of our mind. And I don't think even a married woman who comes to take up the job can leave at any time. There could be so many other reasons. And maybe it doesn't really deter us from taking a younger person. Main thing we see is, of course, if that person has been working somewhere, it's more that we look to see, has she been moving from one job to the other job frequently? That is one point that we look at. But if we find that she has worked in audit firm for a couple of years, then moved on to better herself, that doesn't stand in our way. And in our organization, we definitely look at females, because sometimes we prefer to take them rather than males, because we feel they are more committed and will do a better job. So I don't think that is really a problem when it comes to recruiting a young girl. Of course, we bear it in mind that she may leave, but that's something we have to take with a stride.
Do you think it's something that happens? I mean, I understand it doesn't happen in your organization, but do you think that is something that we women have to face at a particular age?
Maybe, but if you give them the confidence at the interview that what your person who wants to continue with her career, and family, getting married and having children is not going to stand in your way, then I think that should not be a problem. Because now when I started off, I was very young, not married, but I was recruited. And of course, I had to leave Mauritius from organization in a couple of months because I had to leave to Zambia. And even there, I didn't have children at the time, but they recruited me. And of course, I put off having a kid because I was, I think, workaholic and preferred to continue with my work rather than be tied down to a family life. But if you give them the confidence that what you want is to go on with your career, I don't think that will be a negative point when it comes to getting yourself recruited for a job.
Okay. Ladies, I'm going to invite all of you all to jump in wherever you feel that you want to comment. Just feel free to unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Anoji, I'm going to, the next question is also one I think is a little bit close to your heart. You have a passion in developing the SME sector in Sri Lanka. We've seen that with your enthusiasm in our SME Task Force. Records indicate that this sector is fairly represented by women. Given your experience, could you briefly mention about the support lines available for women to succeed in the SME sector?
Okay. Yes, so before I think I start that, I just want to add one comment to Ashini's about children. I think as mothers, this is something all mothers have to remember. All we can do is show them the way. We can't control their lives, and we can't all expect them to be like somebody else's child. So personally, what I would always ask my son at after every exam is whether he did his best. And if he said yes, whether he was first or last, I didn't care, because that's his best. So that's, I think, what as mothers we have to do. Like what she said, I completely agree. We can't run their lives. Don't do their work, because later on those are the children who can't manage, because finally you have to let them go and they have to manage in their lives. So coming back to SME sector, I think as CAs, we have a wonderful opportunity, because we have two fantastic choices. So one choice is if we want to be a SME entrepreneur. And the second choice is if we want to be a SME service provider. So if you want to be a SME entrepreneur, I think we've got one of the best skill sets, because one of the things that's holding back the SMEs a lot is the finance literacy. And as chartered accountants, we have that skill, and we have the skill of risk management. Just that I think what we lack is the ability to take risks, because as an entrepreneur, you also have to develop your ability to take risks. You can't always go by the numbers. There are certain instances you have to ignore the numbers, go with your gut feel. So that's the area that we can develop. So if CA, especially our young ladies, want to be entrepreneurs, I think CA is also going to launch very soon incubator for SME entrepreneurs. And any of our members who want to be entrepreneurs, I would encourage them to join in, because we've invested a lot and we've got, I think, advice from CA entrepreneurs. And I believe, Dulani, that's about to be launched. Yeah. And if you want to also be an entrepreneur, I think a couple of things you need to do. Like I said, you need to have a strong network of other entrepreneurial women. So what I would say is one of the best things, if you're a woman, is to join Women's Chamber, because 67% of the members there are entrepreneurial women. So that gives you a good pool of entrepreneurs. So that will be your network of entrepreneurs. Then you also need to join the chambers, which will give you the required skill. So for example, if you're in the export sector, there's a National Chamber of Exporters, which you should join, because that will give you the right skill set and the know-how for you to be exporter. There's a National Chamber of Apparel. There's a National Chamber of Construction Industry. So like that, you also have to join the chamber that complements the industry that you're in if you want to be an entrepreneur. Then CA also has this developed this SME task force, which is going to be, I think, we are hoping it will be one of the best contributions from CA to the country. What we are trying to develop is, we are trying to develop a model where the CA professionals as accounting professionals and banking professionals can work together to co-mentor SME businesses. Because what we find is, we find most of the time, okay, what we thought was we'll start with the bankers, because the bankers are generally trusted professionals by entrepreneurs, and they cultivate the bankers a lot because they want to go for lending. So they go to the bankers and they generally tend to listen to the bankers a lot. So when we go to co-mentor with the banker, and now we've tied up with Sanasa Development Bank, and we've also tied up with People's Bank. So it's going to be CA professionals, and we are also layering it. So when you come to SMEs also, you have different SMEs. So certain SMEs, if you want to be a service provider as a chartered accountant, you need to find a SME that fits that level. Not all SMEs, if you go to some SMEs, you'll destroy that company, being a chartered accountant, right? Then we also have a second tier, which is the CBA level. That level can service the mid-tier, and we've also tied up with AAT, which can also select the small and medium sector. So at the moment, we are having our CA professionals, AAT professionals, going to mentor these SMEs, which is a very hands-on experience. We are learning a lot. The task force is learning a lot. Some things work. We are learning what works, what doesn't work. So if you want to be either a SME entrepreneur or a SME service provider, I think that will be one of the best hands-on experiences that you can get. So I would encourage anyone who wants to be a SME entrepreneur or SME service provider to join this network, because it will give you a very good insight as to how to handle SMEs, how to talk to them, and also how to service them. Plus also, if you want to be a small and medium practitioner that is servicing the SMEs, I think we have the CA SMP Task Force. So please watch out for those and join those. So I think there are a lot of resources at CA also that is available. And anyone who wants to be involved in the SME sector, I think that's also, I believe, a sector, because 52% of our GDP is contributed by the SME sector, which is a huge number. I mean, even though large corporates are there, 52% is contributed by the SME sector. And if we can uplift that sector, that's a huge contribution also to our economy.
Thank you, Anuji. Thank you very much for that. I have one question for you specifically. They've mentioned this question to you from the audience, so I'm going to read it out to you. How can women move towards promotions in their career in a challenging environment? And they are asking you specifically, where are you today? What is the point? Which point are you in your career?
Well, I think the first part of the question, to a great extent, we've answered, particularly in dealing with training, in dealing with lack of confidence. There is, I think, one more aspect that I think we need to be aware of is the fact that women tend not to promote themselves. We underestimate ourselves, we don't promote ourselves, and as a result, we lack visibility. So in addition to everything else that I spoke before, and the other speakers also spoke about, I would say that we need to have the confidence to accept responsibility readily and to promote ourselves in the workplace. When it comes to where I see myself in my career, in terms of my career, I think I'm at the stage when it's sort of towards the end of my career in a way. And I think the biggest role I play now is in mentoring and in passing on my knowledge. Yeah, one of the most important roles that I think Anuji spoke about is the fact that you need to groom your staff. You need to make you need to be in a position where your staff can succeed. And for many years, my, shall I say, objective, my prime objective, which is not a KPI given to me by my organization, not just yet, was in effect to make myself redundant. Because if you make yourself redundant, it means you've trained your staff well. If you can't leave the organization, it means you haven't built up your staff. If you can't get promoted or you can't take leave, it means you haven't promoted your staff. So I think that's the stage at which I am in my career. I'm also at a stage in my career which I'm enjoying very much, is that since I retired 2 years ago, I've got involved in a very diverse set of organizations, not just as a non-executive director, which you've already mentioned, where I'm in the financial services sector, UML, Hemas Pharmaceuticals. I've also run my small consultancy company. And I've also got involved in I've set up a publishing company for publishing academic books, right? Now, that was something that I would never have thought about 5 years ago. And I think that illustrates a point that that you need to be willing to take on challenges at whatever stage of your life you're at. You shouldn't be afraid of trying to do something new. So I think that's the stage I'm at. I enjoy the roles I play, and I think I'm enjoying the opportunity of working in so many organizations.
Thank you, Coralie. Maurice, I think based on what Coralie said, I think the fear factor or the fear of failing plays a huge role whenever we take on a challenge. So is that something that has held you back, or is that how do you deal with this? Maybe not so much now, but when you started off, how did this fear factor really did it hold you back, or how did you cope with it?
I think I've had to deal with a lot of disappointments and failures in my life. I think most people do anyway. But generally, I do not get into a panic or free fall when I encounter failures. First and foremost, I do not work alone. I always work with somebody else, or at least, or with a team. Then most generally with a team of people, so that I've always somebody else to fall back on, all the time, and not get panicky as such. Fortunately, I think I'm a fairly confident person when it comes to my job and my business, full of confidence. And that's something I've learned and I've gained over the years, really. And where I am very aware of and I know that I can depend on my capabilities and abilities to get me out of any problem that might crop up, really. Now, the capabilities and abilities is not something that comes just naturally. You have to keep on nurturing. You have to keep on building it, really. You can't let it go. Whether you started 10 years ago or 50 years ago or even now, I keep on all the time building up the knowledge. And I depend on other things. I depend on other people a lot, really. I don't do a lot of work myself. I'm always depend on other people to do things with. And sometimes, yes, things go wrong, but you have someone else to share it with. As I said earlier, you will not get into a panic. You sort of accept it, really. You accept what has happened, the failure that has happened. You try to correct it. If you can't correct it, okay, nothing to get scared about. Just accept what has happened. Don't try to struggle to get out of it and, put yourself entangle yourself, but move on. There are so many other things that will come your way, really. Another thing that helps, I think, with failures is that I don't let myself fail most of the time, really, although I do have some failures, is I do a lot of planning. So when you plan and you have not only one plan, but you have alternatives as well online, then you don't get into panic. One thing fails, and you have to go to your next plan, so that you can really move on. And so that generally you don't get surprised if you have a lot of planning going on. You don't get surprised when something goes wrong, because you know you can always step up and move on to the next thing. So no, I don't really get worried too much when there's a failure.
No, that's good advice, Maurice. But you spoke about confidence. Do you think that is something that we females lack?
Yeah, really, that also you have to, at company we have quite a lot of females. 38% of our senior management are females. I think when they start off, they may feel a bit reluctant because they don't know how they're going to be accepted. But if you show them that they're accepted, and then through training you bring them up, they get quite a lot of confidence in themselves. But it's a matter of nurturing them and giving them the confidence they require to come up to, because once they come up, they really contribute to the business.
Thank you, Maurice. Nilanthi, you mentioned that 40% in your organization, the females are represented by 40% of the of your organization. Yes, is represented by females. Is this something that you see at the board level as well? Do you think females are fairly represented at the board level?
The answer is no, Dulani. As I said, 40% representation of females in the workforce, but as we go up, the numbers get less. So we can see that when it comes to middle management level, it may be around 29%, but then senior management, it drops to about 18%. So we have the group supervisory board, which is a very small, that's like next to the main board. So there we have 50%, but it just happened to be that because it's just a small number. But talking about representation at board level, I think if you take all the listed companies, there's only 10% female representation in listed companies. And that is a serious concern, because I think maybe in private companies it may be more, but in listed companies that is very woefully inadequate. And that is, so for one thing is you have executive directors and non-executive directors. Even most of those who are represented on listed company boards are non-executive or independent directors. So what you need to do is to build a pipeline in organizations where we sort of encourage women to get to the C-suite level. Once you are in that C-suite level, then it becomes much easier for them to be appointed onto boards. But that bias comes in again, particularly with boards that have a very senior age matters a lot. So people on some boards where there are very senior people, you'll find that sort of unconscious bias coming in. I mean, there are companies where there are much younger boards, then you also have banks which consciously make an effort to seek female participation. But even then, most of those females are non-executive directors. So this is something that I think SLED and CA Sri Lanka are trying to address, and having these board-ready women directors, mentoring and training women to be board-ready, and also SLED has mentors, even male mentors who sort of mentor women who will be ready to take on board positions. So that's something that I think we need to address. We have already made representations. I think Anoji would second that, to try and get it mandated as something in the listing rules, at least progressively. But there is a lot of resistance. So because it has been proven that companies with females on boards have performed better financially, and there is, value, more stakeholder value created in companies. This has been proven. So many studies have been done. And also the fact that a board is diverse. When in a country like Sri Lanka, 50% of the workforce of the population are female, obviously you need representation, even companies that are. So therefore, we've seen that there is a requirement, and a lot of work is being done. I know by say various organizations trying to get that in place. So hopefully we will get there. But as I said, again, it is also the young women who need to, understand that and push themselves further. Because we all discussed, all of us were talking about people somewhere halfway through their careers wanting to step back or step out because of certain other personal sort of commitments. Now that if their family, they can arrange that, they get the support from their families, their spouses, and I think that's happening to a great extent among the younger generation. That is where we can really encourage, and corporates like ours also, we have started, training and development and setting up a diversity and inclusion committee to train women to get to that C-suite level, and then after that, getting on to the boards. So this is something that I think is required, and hopefully with a collective effort, not just from the women alone. Because you find there is the Women Directors Forum, there is IFC Women at Work, Women in Work program, there is Women in Management, but these are all women-centric organizations. We need to get men also involved, male board directors and so many other top executives in corporates also to buy into this initiative. So that way we can try to achieve a certain amount of balance on boards. Female representation.
Okay. Sorry, who's that? Sorry, Anuji, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, so Dulani, I just wanted to add to that. Just to say that IFC actually was the first to publish a list of all women who were on boards in Sri Lanka. And then lot of credit to, I think, the CA Women Empowerment former chairperson, founder chairperson Aruni Rajakarya. CA went a step beyond, and we published a directory of women who are board ready. So these were women who may not have also board positions, but who can be considered by companies. Because we have about 2,000 female chartered accountants, approximately 500 fellow female members. And if you are, any of you who are listening here, if you have 10 years post-qualifying experience and 5 years in a senior management capacity, I would strongly recommend you. We are in the process of launching it end of this month, the next edition. Please send in your CV and have yourself listed, even if you are not able to take a position immediately. You can put restrictions saying not available immediately, because as a profession, we want to showcase that CAs will be one of the best schools that, because we've got the finance literacy skill plus the industry. So as an industry, we want to showcase the strength we have. So that, like what Nilanthi said, the resistance and the excuses can be lesser. One of the biggest excuses is you can't find the women, even though we are saying take women on board. So to all the ladies who are listening out there, please, you have to do it very soon because we are launching it end of the year. But please send in your CVs because we need to showcase you.
Yeah, can I add something? Because
Yes,
according to what Nilanthi said, we have about, I said 43% of our senior management are women, right? And that also comes from the fact that the males accept it. The males do not try to put them down at any cost. So you have to nurture that also in the company, where the males are encouraged to accept women more readily in senior management positions. really. That adds to the numbers increasing.
I agree with Maurice on that, because there's, we can't be only women-centric, even these organizations. You need to bring more males into those to encourage women to get to the senior positions. That's why we are starting this diversity and inclusivity network or initiative in our company, so that it won't be just restricted to women. There'll be a lot of men also involved, to try to encourage and train and nurture and mentor women to get to senior positions.
Thank you. And I think discussions like this, unfortunately, we see more females joining in, but I must say congratulations to all we have a few men who have joined us today. So thank you very much, because that's a start actually, because otherwise if it's just us who are talking about this, it's difficult to make a change. So we definitely need your buy-in as well to make a change. Eshni, my question to you once more. Everyday sexism in the workplace keeps on popping on and off. What is your recommendation to working women and the organizations to prevent these microaggressions?
This is a very real problem. In many cases, if there is a male boss and if he makes advances to the female staff, it could even be at the factory levels, it could be at the professional levels, it could be throughout. There's a tendency for females to drop out. They don't know how to handle the situation. So it's absolutely essential that the organization sees this as a very real problem, and that they have a grievance procedure where they have a go-to person or more than one go-to person, where they are made, where the person is able to come and report the situation, or where they have a hotline where they can call on this number and give the details and say, look, I have an issue, right? Now, Maharajas has signed up with a counselor where, not just for this issue, but any issue, any mental health issue, where the employee is able to reach out to the counselor. And if there is an issue of this nature, they can even come back to the organization and say, hey, look at this division or this area, you need to address this. That is very vital. We need to provide safety. There are certain government regulations about working late, working after 6. I think it was mentioned here as well. But they are not completely practical, though it's followed. It may not achieve the objective of safety for females, particularly they're working after 6. But we need to make sure that the woman is able to work very comfortably in whatever the environment they are provided with. So a grievance procedure is absolutely vital. Also, having said that, every one of us as females have been exposed to this sexuality, sexism, abuse from the age of a teen, unfortunately. That's reality. Even if you go in a bus, even if you go to a tuition class, somewhere you have to build your own skill sets. You have to have your armor. You need to know when to be aggressive, with whom to be aggressive, how that is, you give this message. I am not, yes, I work. Yes, I'm there to provide my services, but I am within my own boundaries of ethics and morals. Yes, that's it. So that message, we need to know how to do that. But there's one point I would like to make under this question. I have seen when ladies want to sort of break the glass ceiling to get into the C-suite, the boards, there's certain people who use this sexuality in a very inappropriate manner. And when I'm sure there's nobody in this audience who does that, but I thought it's worth mentioning, particularly when there are young people, not to do that, because here we are striving to push the ladies onto the board. And if they break ethics, moral boundaries to get there, then you can't serve well. Because when you get on a board, you're there to work in the best interest of the organization. And you're also there to look after your employees. So to do that, it's not about glamour and glory of getting on a board. It's about serving. It's about making sure who succeeds you is a better version of you. So to do that, you need to know what you're doing. So you don't take shortcuts like that. It leaves a very bad impression on the female populace. Then the male population will stop helping us also to get there. So we need to be very careful how we handle this sexuality. Is that clear? Or?
Yes, very clear, Ashni. But something like you very rightfully said, this is something that I think all of us have faced throughout our lifestyle, and unfortunately, it can be in the form of a comment. It can be through some sort of a snarky remark that we get. So unfortunately, it's there. That's a fact. And like you very rightfully said, we need to have our own armor. But unfortunately, I'm not sure whether everyone, whether everyone is strong enough or everyone has that.
Yes. So you need to be able to handle that. There are a few questions I can see that are coming on this topic. So maybe, I don't know whether we need to take it up now.
Yes,
but
yeah.
There was one question saying, how do you handle that?
Yes.
Right. So when I face situations where I get these snarky remarks, right? So I give back. Promptly I give back as a joke, right? So they know, okay, that's it. So you can have this kind of banter. It doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect the other person. But one thing is, there is also a thing like this, it depends on how you take it. You can take it as a joke, or you can actually get affected by it. Right? You can't stop the person who's speaking, no, but you can give a message. You can give back in a joking way where you know that, okay, that is dispelled. You know, that is dispelled. He's not going to say that again. Right? So it could, but what worries me is if it goes further, there could be physical overtures, which is not right at all. If it's verbal, we can give them back, right? But we as females need to know how to conduct ourselves. Now, I have heard the younger people say, oh, I dress to please myself. Now, that is very dangerous. Yes, you can please yourself, but there are other people who get pleased in the process. So if you're okay with that, and if you're okay with the overtures, then all the best. But then you need to know as a female how to have your own armor around you. I can't give a recipe without knowing the situation, and also it has to come from your own self. You have to observe the other person's body language, and you can see, this fellow is now heading in this direction. You have to immediately put a stop to that. And that gives a message saying, look, I'm not interested. So I don't know what other questions came, but I saw that question and I thought I'll answer that.
Thank you, Ashini. We actually have a very interesting question from one of the gentlemen in the audience. I'll just read it out. Anyone of you can take this. A significant issue that in our society, women are expected to be the primary caregivers. And we, as in this gentleman is saying, and we do not play our part in the household. How do we get out of that? So I think that's a very interesting question coming from a gentleman.
Can I
Please
answer that?
Yes.
Okay, so I think when I got married, my husband came from a household like that, where 3 boys and the mother, and even the father did not think that doing any housework was his place. I mean, they were not mean, but that's how they were brought up. So they kind of assumed that the mother and the person who was helping her were responsible for the housework. So as a result, I remember when I got married, my husband's idea of helping was to take his cup of tea after he drinks and go and keeping it inside the sink and expecting me to come behind and wash. So I think it requires a lot of patience because sometimes it's the way they have been brought up. you have to keep having the conversations. You keep having to tell them, look, I mean, just like you work, I also work. I also have deadline. And we have to have that conversation to make them also aware that it's a family. It's not your job, my job. When it's a family, it's everybody's job. And I think for all the mothers out there, I think it's very, very important you bring up your sons correctly. Because from the small ages, you have to give responsibility to your sons. My son is the official plate washer of the family. So after he's responsible, I've said this before, so he's responsible for dinner in our family. He has to have a conversation with the lady who comes to help to see what dinner is available. If there is no dinner, he has to order dinner. He has to serve the dinner plus do the washing. Of course, I pay him a pocket money to do that. But I get him to earn the pocket money. Plus also every morning he gets up, he has to arrange his bed. He has to make sure his room is clean. So like that, you have to make them also from their young ages learn to share the housework. Because without that, I think women can never continue to do the job. It's not possible. It's too much. That's something I want to add. I'm sure the other ladies also have enough to add on this.
Actually, I think the stage has to be set when you get married. You have to set your expectations and you slowly communicate that certain things are not possible because you're too tired or whatever the way that works best for you. And over a period of time, you find they start doing certain aspects, certain parts are done by them and certain parts are done by you. Like for instance, if they expect you to do, in my life, if I'm expected to do something for a long period of time, all of a sudden I just don't do it. Then they think a little bit and see it's not done. I said, yeah, I just didn't feel like doing it, can't, that's it. So then it gets outsourced or something happens. So, because we are human, we are not machines, we are human. And there are times you need a breather and you can't be bothered doing it. Come on. So it's like that. So you have to set your rules. Like, for instance, I remember in my mother's household, she was the one who used to go around turning off the lights and doing all those things in the night, you know, ensuring the house is secure. So she had spelled out her life that way. So she had to do most of the work and not the husband.
Thank you, Ashmi. I'm just reading out one more question that is there from the audience. It says, sometimes we feel like giving up CA because many reasons. Can't complete training requirements on time. I think they're trying to say age is one barrier, but want to be a chartered accountant. How can we be motivated? Nilanthi, Coralie, do you all want to take this question?
Yes, I didn't quite understand it.
So I think what they're asking is the fact that they feel frustrated within this system at times. There is this training requirement. They are trying to finish their chartered. Age is becoming, the age is catching up on them. So they're asking, how do they motivate themselves?
Okay, one thing I can tell you, please don't give up. Because yes, you may feel, because we see other professional organizations offering you a very short, quick path to get full membership or full qualification. But you can do that as well if you want to. But don't give up your chartered. Because yes, that training period is there for a reason. Because so that when you become a fully fledged chartered accountant, you have gone through that. You actually know what you're doing. That qualification you carry, you have got a certain amount of experience to say that you're a chartered accountant. So I know there is a lot of temptation among the younger students and the members, the students, to kind of give up on CA because they think it's taking far too long. In fact, so many people I interview, when I ask them, didn't you, or they have part qualified CA, or why didn't you complete your CA? They say, no, it took me far too long. I did something else and I have got a qualification, so that's enough for me to find a job. So this is the sad part of it. There is no answer really. I don't know. I can't give you a solution, but all I can tell you is don't give up, because you have the opportunity to get into the private sector, even if you don't want to continue in audit firm for that entire period of internship. So there are organizations in the private sector also that offer you training. So at least try to get into those organizations, so that then if it's a problem about, where you need to earn more, or whatever it is, your income is not sufficient, there are other opportunities. So that's why I'm telling you, don't, try not to give up. I don't know, Anuji, Corali, or maybe having better solutions. Dulani from the institute itself, maybe it's something that you'll need to address. But that's kind of my advice.
Can I add something?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I want to tell everyone is, when you are doing chartered, what you are doing is not an exam to get a job, but you're doing is an exam to become a professional. So I think what people have to understand first is the difference between that. Because a job, you can just learn something and you can repetitively do it. But when you're a professional, you have to also supervise a lot of people, and you have to get the work out of them. So that training, I think what people don't appreciate is that training is what is teaching you the skill that you require for that role, a supervisor role. Because when you're a chartered accountant, you'll never go as a clerk, but you'll be, never go as a accounts executive who's doing bank reconciliations. But you will be the person who's responsible to supervise that person and make sure they do the right thing. So that's why I think chartered has this model of both the education and the skill development together, and people who make use of that properly only is able to move to the next level. So that, I think, is something you have to remember. So the pain is worth it. I mean, because you're not just going for a job, you're going for a career which will take you, I mean, as long as you want, even up to your 80s.
Very true, Anuji. And I think based on today's discussion, we see that, I mean, it's not an easy path. We've all taken this difficult path and it finally pays off. So my advice to you is also hanging there and then make the most of this journey. And at the same time, please keep in mind that CA Sri Lanka is 100% committed towards your future. So if you ever feel that you're having a difficulty with your training, having a difficulty with your exams, please come and speak to us. We have our various departments that deal with the specific areas, whether it's examination, students. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are there to help you, because end of the day, it is very important. Aspiring members are absolute important part of this institution. So we are very, very committed towards you completing your chartered. So because of that, don't feel that this is a difficult journey. It might be a difficult journey at times, but then it's a worthwhile journey. So I think we've come to the end of our time. So let me thank everyone. First of all, let me thank the audience for joining with us today to celebrate women. Thank you to these amazing women who are in the panel today, who have made today's discussion absolutely thought-provoking. You all have actually left us with quite a few things to think about. I think it will definitely help some of our aspiring members as well as our members who joined us. Last but not least, I must thank Niroshi for coming up with this idea and for organizing everything. So thank you, ladies. Thank you very much for joining with us today.
Thank you, Dulani, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Dulani, for the opportunity.